This podcast contains adult language and stories of true crime. If you don't like laughing, crying, or being horrified at the actions of other humans, this podcast is not for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 24 of Resolved Mysteries. This is the show where we rewatch, recap, and give you the latest updates to cases featured on the show, Unsolved Mysteries. I'm Carlin.
I'm Alison.
I'm Eliza.
And welcome to our show. Each month, for every review that we receive, we donate $1 to a different nonprofit, and this month we are doing Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, suggested by Instagram user by Felicia92. All right, so this is part 2 of our episode. What are we going to be covering in this part?
Oh, I have a robbery, the Vallejo armored car murders and robbery. It's weird that it's a robbery case because it's actually a murder case.
Yeah. Kind of weird. And then I have an amnesia case, and it's the story of Sarah DiGenarro.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, Vallejo armored car murders, which is a robbery segment, but we'll find out how much robbing was actually done.
That is weird. I didn't really think about it.
Me neither till this moment. So, at 8:51 p.m. on November 13th, 1991, a chilling call came into the Vallejo, California police. Loomis drivers had pulled into a Loomis Armored Incorporated warehouse. Of course, we still see Loomis Armored Cars, still a company that's around. And they saw a man that had been tied up on the floor. So normally, drivers just drop off the money collected on their runs at the warehouse for deposit in banks. Patrol cars immediately came to the scene of what they believed was a robbery in progress at the warehouse. And as police made their approach, they saw that the security door of the main building was partially open, and a bag of money lay near the entrance. The officers moved cautiously, fearful that somewhere gunmen were still around on the property. So once inside, police discovered that this was not just a simple robbery. In fact, there was a security guard just inside the door that lay dead on the floor. His hands had been bound with rope, and he had been shot through the head. As the police moved further into the building, they found 2 other guards. One of them was dead, and the other had been mortally wounded, and he later died in the hospital. Like the first victim, they had each been bound and shot in the head. So the guards were identified as 49-year-old Martin McCumber of Fairfield, 29-year-old Dennis Jacobson of Vallejo, and 25-year-old Alfonso Lontayo of Vallejo. Martin left behind a wife of nearly 20 years and 4 stepchildren.
Oh, God.
And he had worked for Loomis for 11 years, and Alfonso was engaged to be married in 6 months. And for some reason, they don't say anything about Dennis Jacobson.
Because he was single, and no one cares about the single.
He was still a person, so that it's very sad.
It did get me just thinking about that job, though, because I was like, it's not the same as, like, being a police officer or something where you're like, yeah, I'm going into this knowing I might die.
Right.
And the pay is not great.
No.
And you don't get the, like, respect of being a hero in the community or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alfonso had recently switched to the night shift in order to make enough money for the wedding and a new house.
Aww.
So Detective Bob Sampayan said that this case will be one that will forever stick in his mind because it was a very brutal and senseless killing of 3 innocent people who were just trying to make a living.
Oh, God.
So Stack says the brutality of this crime was not its only hallmark. Police were surprised to find that the killers had left behind an abundance of physical evidence. All of that evidence, this is so interesting. All of that evidence has been used in the recreations for this broadcast. Watch closely. Perhaps someone in the audience will be able to identify the killers.
Oh, I missed that.
Truly, they left behind everything.
Everything.
What the fuck?
All of the things. So after police units had secured the crime scene, detectives were called in and they found numerous duffel bags that had been left behind. And inside the bags, they found a pair of shoes, which they show the real shoes that were left behind on UM, some tools, and some lighter fluid. And the lighter fluid is somewhat of a mystery still because they don't understand why they brought the lighter fluid unless they plan to catch the whole place on fire, but it's like made of cement. I don't know if that would really work to cover their tracks. Also, they don't really seem to care about covering their tracks because they left everything behind.
Yeah.
But the lighter fluid is an interesting clue because it had a price that had been handwritten on the bottle.
Right.
And so they show a picture of that to be like, does anyone recognize this writing? Or does your store mark prices like this? And then the shoes that were shown were a brand called Honors, and they were sold exclusively at Target stores. So then detectives were also surprised when they found the murder weapon, which was an 8-inch blue steel Colt Trooper and a 357. We don't say 300, I guess, do we?
Every time we're like, I don't know how to say this.
357 caliber Magnum revolver.
A 350.
A 300. And maybe that's the same gun. An 8-inch blue steel Colt Trooper 357 caliber Magnum revolver.
I think so. I think it's like a type of that gun.
Okay.
It's just a lot of words for one gun.
It's also guns are confusing and terrible.
And stupid.
Yep.
So they were able to determine that that gun had been reported previously as lost or stolen in the LA area in about 1969.
Whoa.
So by the next morning, the FBI is called in and still more evidence is found. So they had found a bag of money right outside the door when investigators came in. Well, they also find just inside the compound, so outside but still inside the gates of the facility, an orange duffel bag stuffed with hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it had been left behind. And nearby that, they also found the bolt cutters that had been used to break in through the wire fence.
Oh, they just Hansel and Gretel'd this situation. There's just shit everywhere. It's a goddamn breadcrumb trail. What's going on?
Seriously.
Truly.
And yet they're still on UM because they haven't solved it.
And you're just getting more and more enraged that it seems like these murders were even more senseless.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't even get the fucking money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So investigators then travel along the fence line, and they located a pair of gloves that were about 15 to 20 feet from the cut hole in the fence. And then beyond that, they found ski masks, more gloves, and camouflage fatigue type clothing.
These fucking idiots.
And then right by there, they find another large bag with a lot of money in it.
What? And if they were wearing ski masks, then they definitely didn't have to kill those people.
Exactly. So then the most horrifying part is that then across the street, there's a park. A park where anyone could be. And in that park, investigators find an AK-47.
What the fuck?
Just laying around. And a pair of gloves and a ski mask. Near that, there was an impression in the ground that led investigators to believe that one of the robbers/murderers hid laying in the grass for a long time before getting up and fleeing.
That's interesting.
It's just these fucking dummies. Even though DNA wasn't a thing, so they weren't thinking about that with the masks.
Right.
gloves, masks, clothing. These are all things that could possibly be traced to you.
Like did they have no plan? I don't understand.
It's a clown show.
Yeah.
It's a total clusterfuck.
Well, and this reminded me of the heist episode at the airport.
Girl.
Because they don't realize how heavy fucking money is. Like bags of money.
And I think that's what happened. They had to drop their loads because it was getting too heavy. And then probably they were like just going crazy because it was taking too long to get out of the area. So then they started pulling their disguises off and trying to lose everything they possibly could.
Yep.
Money is heavy.
Yes.
Friends, money is heavy.
Yeah, you dum-dums.
I'll go into like the timeline of what actually happened. But that is all of the evidence that was left behind. And judging from the evidence, the authorities believed that there were probably 4 robbers involved. And hair samples that were found on the ski masks indicated that at least one of them was white and one of them was black. And then eyewitnesses later would confirm this. So, exactly 1 week to the hour after the murders, authorities set up a roadblock near the armored car facility, hoping to find people who are like traveling to and from work at that time regularly.
Yeah.
They learned that a white male was seen running north from the building at around 9 p.m. on November 13th, and a black male was seen around the same time running north on a different street.
That was super smart.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And it seemed like real footage. I don't know. That seemed like real footage of the
roadblock.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a reenactment. So, working backwards, authorities began to figure out what happened on the night of the murders and the attempted robbery. At approximately 8 p.m., 4 heavily armed men dressed in combat fatigues approached the Loomis building and cut through the fence. So, one security guard was on duty inside, and 40 minutes later, 2 other guards arrived transporting a significant amount of cash. And they're actually in the truck. And they made radio contact with the guard inside the building saying, like, we're coming. And the guard is inside a lookout booth, which is called a turret room. And he is responsible for opening up the gate and the security door right as the car is coming in. Like, it's a pretty secure facility. So several, like, empty Loomis trucks are parked on the inside of the fence. So the robbers cut through the fence, but then are on just in the parking lot area, hiding among all of these cars. Like, it's very easy to hide once you're inside of there. And then once the truck arrived and the security door opened, it's possible that the killers just, like, came in underneath the door quickly before the guards had a chance to respond. And so then they believed the killers approached the guards as they left the truck. The reenactment even has some of them, like, riding in on the truck as it's coming in. And then when it parks, they come out from the back.
It's so scary.
And pull the passenger and the driver out. When they walk in, they believe that the robbers probably told the guard that was in the turret room, like, come out. And he's like, okay, well, they'll just hold me as a hostage, trying to, like, save the lives of his friends. Like, he doesn't want to just lock himself in the turret room and save himself. So he comes out.
Yeah. That makes sense to me because I was like, you know, why did they have to kill them? They had masks, they had guns, like, but if somebody walked in and kind of surprised them, I could see things going south.
Maybe, yeah. So then the 3 guards are eventually overpowered and bound, and the killers then focus on getting the money out of the truck, and they're, like, pulling these duffel bags along, and they're very, very heavy. And then right before they leave, they shoot the guards But the place is armed with this like security system where a sound like a gunshot sets off an alarm.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. So it's not the security guard in the turret room that set anything off. It's like once one shot was fired, an alarm starts going off.
That's brilliant.
And so this is what makes the robbers and / murderers like really panic.
Freak out.
Right, because you can tell they're panicking and abandoning their plan.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then another thought
so smart.
that one of the FBI agents has, Richard Hanf, is that, like we've all been saying, there's no reason for these guards to be killed. They were bound. They were laying on the floor. They don't need to be killed unless it's possible that they knew at least one of the robbers or killers.
Oh, yeah.
Inside job.
Yeah.
And it always is.
They say that probably the bags of money weighed about 90 pounds. And even though they're assuming like maybe it's an inside job, why didn't they know how heavy bags of money were?
That's true.
Yes.
But even though the alarm was going off, even though they left behind millions of dollars and everything they were wearing, apparently, they also got hypothermia and stripped naked on the way to escape.
Yeah, just
I
running
don't understand. They still got away and they were not caught. So the case kind of ends with one of the police officers, Sergeant Becker, noting that these, he does a really good job of, like, these are not just guards. This wasn't just their job. They were people. They had wives and children and girlfriends and parents that loved them, that they left behind.
Yeah.
And their survivors are permanently impacted by this senseless killing, of course.
Right.
Based on the evidence and the eyewitnesses, they knew they were looking for at least one white male and one black male, but probably two other people. The black male was described as having short hair and was between 20 and 30 during the time, and between 6 foot and 6'5" with a heavy build, and he was wearing a camouflage shirt and pants, which were tucked into his boots. Authorities also heard from the roadblocks set up that it's possible one of them had been driving a yellow late 1970s Datsun, and that possibly one of the robbers had worked for Loomis before. So, okay, so that's the end of the segment. So in March of 1993, 29-year-old Thomas Durand, or Tom Young, was arrested by the ATF on firearms charges, and an informant had told police that he was involved in the murders that happened at the Loomis facility. So in November, police matched a fingerprint found at the crime scene to him. So he's already in custody on firearms charges. Then they're able to get him with a fingerprint match to Loomis. And so on November 26th, he confessed to the robbery and the murders, and he admitted killing 2 of the guards.
Wow.
And then he told police that 3 other men, so just like they thought, 4 people, were involved. 38-year-old Eugene Bryce Livingston, 34-year-old Assad Shadid Abdul Mohammed, whose name used to be James Gary Brown, and 38-year-old Victor James McLean. And so the 3 other men were arrested in December. So police had already suspected Livingston, which is one of the men that Young named, of being involved because he was a former driver and custodian for Loomis and had worked with the victims.
So when you had just said, how did they not know how heavy the money was?
Right.
In Money Plane, in Heist, the person that sets this all up and gets it going is a driver. The drivers never touch the money.
Right.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it's also entirely possible that every time they've ever moved the money, it's been on a cart or,
Right. In those scenarios, like, you have the money handlers and you have the driver, and the driver never carries the money.
True.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I was going to say maybe it was the driver like it was in Money Plane.
Right.
Wow.
So Livingston had worked for Loomis for 8 years and had quit in December of 1992.
But he did specifically work with those other 3.
Yes. Yes.
Gosh.
Because he had just very recently quit.
And they would recognize him.
Yep. All 4 suspects did know each other, and then a planner found in Young's home had Livingston and McLean's phone numbers in it. So even though some of the men were like, no, I had nothing to do with it, after they were arrested, police were also able to find more evidence that all 4 men knew each other. So the 4 men were charged with murder and armed robbery, and in exchange for his testimony, Young, who's the first one that was arrested, pled guilty to 1 count of murder and was sentenced to 25 years to life. However, during a preliminary hearing for Livingston, Muhammad, and McLean, Young recanted his confession. So he first had confessed to killing 2 of the guards, which, why would you do that? Why would you do it and then recant? I know people recant all the time, but why even confess? You're already going to name these other people. Why not put it on them?
Because he got a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, recant.
Right, but why confess in the first place to killing 2 of them? You're naming 3 of your accomplices.
Yeah, I don't know.
So as a result of that, in July of 1994, charges against Muhammad and McLean were dropped due to lack of evidence. And then Young's plea agreement was revoked since he refused to testify, and so Young and Livingston still face charges in the case. Then in January of 1996, Young was found guilty, the first one arrested, of 3 counts of first-degree murder and robbery.
I wonder if he was like threatened or something.
I know. Right. So he's sentenced to 3 life terms without parole. Livingston, the one who had worked for Loomis, confessed to being involved in the robbery, but he denied participating in the murders. And in April 1996, he was found guilty of second-degree robbery and conspiracy to commit robbery, but was acquitted of murder. And he served 3 years in prison and was later released. 3
years for participating in the murder of
and
3
he was
people?
Completely acquitted of the murder, so he was not serving time for that.
Oh my God, he worked with these people. He knew them.
Right, but in his confession to the robbery, he identified Muhammad, who had been let go, as the mastermind of the robbery and the murders.
No
And this guy's free at this point.
What?
So, in May, because of all this evidence, finally, in May of 1999, DNA evidence linked Muhammad to saliva that was found on a nylon stocking used as a mask and left behind at the scene.
1999.
Yep. And he's been free this whole time, but they left behind all this shit. So, on June 9th, he was arrested and he's charged with the murders. So on May 1st, 2001, he's convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And his conviction was upheld in 2004 when he tried to get out. And it's just so
what
very
about the fourth
sad.
guy? The fourth guy was
never got arrested.
Never named?
No, named, but acquitted.
Yeah, because he was let go. He had already been arrested, and he's let go.
Because the confession was thrown out.
Right.
So he never, McLean, he never served time.
Holy shit.
I know. I forgot to look up if Muhammad is still alive, but
wow.
Anyway,
So terrible.
It's so terrible. I'm sure that the Livingston guy probably does feel terrible. Probably if Muhammad's some evil guy, maybe he didn't know that they were going to get murdered, Livingston,
right.
That his
That's
coworkers were going to get murdered.
Sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
So that's awful.
I gotta say, when you're making $20 an hour, and every single day you're carrying bags of millions of dollars, who among us? I don't know. Wouldn't you? I mean, obviously, the violence aside, wouldn't you eventually break? Wouldn't you fucking go for it?
That's what I thought, even with all the money getting left behind.
Right.
Wouldn't you just reach your hand in and grab a stack that you can carry with your hands?
Truly.
Millions of dollars laying on the ground.
I understand. It's wrong. It's this, it's that. But think about the salary that your average security guard and armored car driver makes. And then all day Like Richardson, 20 years, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, just carrying millions of dollars around. How do you not eventually crack? Like, how do you not?
You're just surrounded
because
by
you
it.
know that they're going to link it to you. Like, it's really difficult to not be somehow linked.
I would be one of those assholes that definitely got caught with my hand in the bag.
In that bag.
My fingers would be very sticky, and it wouldn't be from Thomas's peppermint patty cocktail. It would be because I want all that fucking cash money. I don't know. I think I'm like kind of medium a bad person, but I would go for it at some point. I would crack.
Well, he shouldn't have cracked. Yeah, I mean, no one should anyway,
Of
but
course.
he did it in the wrong fucking way.
I
You
know.
can't
Well,
go
yeah, that's the
all
thing,
out
like-
for it like this.
And
And
he
you
should have
can't
known.
involve all these other fucking people who someone's going to crack and shoot
Kill
someone.
somebody.
And bud, you are linked. You are
Right.
linked.
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
God damn.
It's terrible.
I just, when I saw those gigantic bags of money, I was just like, really? You killed 3 people that you knew?
That you knew, and you did not get 1 cent.
Right. What the hell?
Not that money would make it worth the killings, but yeah.
Damn, that's so sad.
My name's Brian Stratton,
And I'm Rob Milne.
and we co-host Marvel by the Month, a podcast that takes you through the history of Marvel Comics 1 month at a time. From August 1961 to whenever they decide to stop making these things.
It's like the best book club in the world, hosted by guys who thought they knew a lot more about this stuff before they started this podcast.
Look for Marvel by the Month wherever you get your podcasts or at marvelbythemonth.com.
Before Simply Earth's essential oil recipe box showed up at my door, I had a bunch of oils sitting around that I hadn't used in so long. One of the problems with oils is that I'll invest money or I'll pick something up at the store that seems like it will be good, but then I don't actually know what to use it for. And that's where Simply Earth comes in. They actually teach you how to use their oils and give you recipes to help you do that. The Simply Earth Essential Oil Recipe Box will help you gain confidence and clarity in using essential oils to make your home toxin-free. Here's how it works. You'll receive the recipe box with 4 pure essential oils, 6 recipe cards, and extras. You'll learn how to use the oils while making the recipes created by certified aromatherapists. You'll save money and start detoxifying your life and home. The best part is you're buying from a company that changes the world. Simply Earth gives 13% of all of their profits to end human trafficking. It's like a meal subscription kit, but more fun and less edible. The essential oils alone in this kit would cost over $100 from other companies, but with the Simply Earth Essential Oil Recipe Box, you get 4 oils, 6 recipes, and extras for only $39. And when you subscribe, you get a free big bonus box with even more natural goodies. But that's not all. Using essential oils to support your wellness doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can have fun making your home toxin-free with Simply Earth's Essential Oil Recipe Box, plus you'll get a free 80 milliliter essential oil diffuser when you subscribe using our URL, simplyearth.com/mysteries. That's simplyearth.com/mysteries.
All right. This is an amnesia segment, and it is about Sarah DiGenarro. So Stack begins by saying, imagine what it is like to be awakened from a deep sleep and your memories are gone forever.
Right.
That's exactly what happened to 39-year-old housewife from Dundalk, Maryland. She had been stricken with amnesia, a medical mystery that has confounded science for centuries. Stack says she is not searching for a loved one, nor has any crime been committed. What she has lost is every single memory from a 16-year period.
God.
The mystery of Sarah DiGenarro is a mystery of the mind.
This one's so weird.
It is. It really is. So Friday the 13th. Ooh. Coincidence? Probably. Of August 1976. Sarah had had a long history of debilitating migraine headaches. While she was at the bank in line, it was one of the worst migraines that she said that she had ever experienced before. So Sarah DiGenarro is interviewed, and she says in a perfect Baltimorean accent that the pain was so bad that if her head had exploded or if dynamite had gone off in the left side of her head, it would have felt the same way. And in the reenactment, the bank teller is saying, Sarah, are you okay? And she's just holding her head. And Sarah says, there was so much pain, the only thing that I could do was leave there.
Yeah, like I would have thought, I'm dying.
But it's so sad. It's like when people are choking and they don't want to tell anyone, and so they go away and they die alone.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Guaranteed that is what would happen to me.
Yes, it is. I know it is.
It is what would happen to you, yeah. I would be like, help me! No. So Stack says that the attack left Sarah confused and disoriented and unable to see out of her left eye. But somehow she managed to make her way home.
Oh, honey.
Don't do that, anyone. If you're having that experience, please call for a ride.
I know, but she clearly is not in her right mind, like by the truest statement. So 3 hours later, Sarah's husband, Paul, found Sarah lying on their bed. She was partially paralyzed and babbling incoherently, which also, from Paul's perspective, must have been terrifying.
Yes.
Sarah says that she tried to tell him that she was down at the bank and felt like her head exploded, but she couldn't say it. She couldn't get the words out. Stack says that a blood vessel had burst in Sarah's brain. Doctors recommended an extremely delicate and risky operation. And they said that without the operation, Sarah would likely be incapacitated for the rest of her life. So, spoiler alert, I wasn't able to find a lot of supplemental information about this case. So I don't know at what point Paul called the ambulance, if he took her in. I don't know how long the conversation, I don't know how long it took to diagnose her. I don't know. But apparently they recognized that she needed this really insane operation that had not been done very frequently. And I'm sure that was really difficult for the family to decide too, because she could have died.
Yes. Oh, it's so scary.
Stack explains that surgeons are using a relatively new and experimental procedure called microsurgery to repair the broken blood vessels in Sarah's brain. So, as an aside, I Googled, when do we use microsurgery to repair broken blood vessels? And now,
Never?
plastic surgery.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So science creates these amazing things to solve huge problems, and then eventually it ends up being a boob job.
We adopt them for our own vanity.
Exactly.
God.
I was very much like, God, what's wrong with us? So while they're doing this surgery, they discover that her condition was worse than they had initially thought, as if that's humanly possible, because there was a second ruptured vessel.
Oh, God.
Sarah was on the operating table for 9.5 hours. In the reenactment, Sarah wakes up in a hospital room, and Stack says that during the first few days of recovery, Sarah knew that something wasn't quite right and became very frightened. And this is what wasn't quite right to Sarah. Her husband Paul's 1960s crew cut had grown out, and he appeared to have put on weight. Sarah's children were no longer children. They were teenagers. Stack says that Sarah's daughter, Kelly, sensed immediately that her mother had changed. What Kelly didn't know was that her mother didn't even recognize her. And we haven't seen this in a while, but this reenactment is terrible. Because in the reenactment, Kelly is standing in the hospital room and she's scowling.
Yeah, what the hell?
And then her mom is like scowling back. Like, it is not the way that the emotional interaction would have been at all.
I agree. I think she would have been staring at her like confusedly.
And I think that Kelly would have been like, Mom, why are you looking at me like that?
Yes.
Are
Like,
you
I just
okay?
feel like there was probably so much talking that they didn't depict.
So Kelly, Sarah's daughter, is interviewed, and she's sitting in front of the most amount of houseplants I've ever seen beside Carlin's house. She's like in a full indoor jungle. Where have I seen this before? Oh, Carlin's
She must be related to us.
She's a distant cousin.
She truly is. Kelly says that she remembers when her father took her to see her mom, Sarah was wondering who she was and why she was there.
Oh.
Stack says that 16 years of Sarah's memory had been erased. In her mind, she was only 23 years old and had 3 small children at home, not 4 teenage children. What a nightmare to fall asleep to 3 little adorable buns and then wake up to 4 almost grown-ups yelling at you about how you never listened to them.
Oh my God.
That is actually a nightmare. Falling asleep to my adorable little daughter, telling me Nat Geo facts and waking up to whoever she's going to be when she's 16 and fully hating me. Not the way.
Yeah, that's frightening.
That's horrible.
It's as scary as anything else in this segment. So Dr. William Benedict said that most people who experience a brain aneurysm that ruptures do experience some memory loss, but the memory loss tends to be around the event itself and not a prolonged period of time that is lost. He says that in Sarah's case, 16 years, time when children are being born and were growing, to be deprived of that memory as a mother is very unusual.
Yeah, like that's why you love them. Because you were there for all that stuff.
That's why you still like them when they're teenagers. But she lost all of that. So now she's like, who are these assholes? Totally. Why is this girl stink-eyeing me in the hospital?
Yep.
Sack says that 2.5 weeks after the surgery, Sarah was released from the hospital. To Sarah, the neighborhood seemed different. What had once been a dirt road was now a paved street. Where there were once empty lots, quote, new houses stood. Jeez. Doctors had warned Sarah that following the surgery, she might feel slightly disoriented, but no one had prepared her for what she actually felt. Sarah says there was nothing in the house like it was before. Everything was just different. But Sarah says that she figured that if she just kept quiet, eventually she would be able to figure things out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So I think there's always that fear of being crazy, you know? And so you're like, I don't want to tell them all this crazy shit that's going on in my head.
Or I don't want them to know that, to think about me differently. I just want them to keep going with what they think, and I'll deal with this on my own.
And also, I've already caused so much stress in the lives of my family. If I start talking about this, it's going to drive them over the edge. Yeah. Like, we're all going to fall over the edge.
Yeah. And telling your kids you don't remember them is heartbreaking. So many reasons.
Right.
Like, I understand it. I understand why she didn't say a word.
I mean, I think that she is just a doll for being like, I've got this. I'll figure this out. Yeah. I'll sort it. So Stack says that 2 days after returning from the hospital, Sarah began to understand the full magnitude of the problem. So in the reenactment, she asks her husband and daughter, I think she's filling out like a check. And she says, it's 1960, isn't it? And her daughter says, it's 1976, Mom. And her husband says, you're kidding us, right? And Sarah says, yeah, I'm just fooling you guys. I knew that.
I know. I wonder if that was a real conversation.
Or if it was like an example.
Yeah, I think it was probably an example.
It just, I don't know. It's just
Wouldn't
shocking
you,
to me that she
this
still
poor
didn't.
woman, she must have thought they're fucking with me. I would have been like, everyone is
don't think so.
fucking with me.
I think she was probably confused, but she was like, okay, well, there's only one of us that was in the hospital, and it was me.
Yeah.
And whatever happened just made me crazy.
It's horrible.
She probably did have some other disorienting things going on, so she probably just thought, I'm confused, like, I don't know.
And they told her that she would feel disoriented, so she probably thought it was going to go away, because guess what? Yeah. It almost always does. And that's the bananas aspect of this case. It's so sad. So Stack says that terrified by her inexplicable memory loss, Sarah made a conscious decision that no one must know. Not her family, not her friends, not even her doctors.
Oh my God. I hate that part.
Me too.
But like, she's a woman It's the 70s.
Yeah.
She didn't know what it was that was happening to her, so maybe she thought, like, I don't want them to lock me up. Like,
right?
God.
Because you could used to be able to do that. You used to be able to lock people up.
Yeah.
And even if she lost 16 years of memories, she knows that. So Stack says that when she was alone, Sarah would look through family photographs and albums searching for clues about her past. She became obsessed with discovering who she was and where she had come from. Mm-hmm. Sarah says that she didn't have all of the knowledge that she had before, so she would try to get everything back that was lost in her brain. Stack says that Sarah found herself mystified by the most ordinary household appliances. When Sarah was 23, few families had automatic dishwashers, microwave ovens had not yet been invented, and personal computers were unheard of. Even the family car seemed like something out of a space age. And then Sarah says that she had never seen anything like that car in her life. She says, quote, "Here was this big streamlined car. It was unbelievable." She says, magazines used to show cars of the future, and that's what the Pontiac Grand Prix looked like. Mm-hmm. And it is, we'll post a picture, the biggest, oldest American 1970s car.
Yeah.
It is not streamlined, and it's not that magical, but again, 1960.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So Stack says that Sarah internalized her fears and tried to go about life as if nothing had ever happened. Yet everything had changed. Sarah's taste in music, fashion, and dance was that of a 23-year-old, not a woman approaching middle age.
That's so funny.
Times have changed so much now that, like, the 1991 concept of a woman approaching middle age and liking things that she liked when she was 23, no one would fault me for liking Radiohead or the White Stripes or the Shins.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, Mom, what are you doing?
Right. It was so generational. Like, you couldn't stray from your generation. Mm-hmm.
So many hard changes, especially in music and pop culture back then, where it was like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like the Beatles went on Ed Sullivan in that time that she's missing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's huge sea changes at that time that really are a lot more casual right now. And there's just a lot more generational overlay now, too. So Kelly, she said that she would come home from school and her mom would be blasting the music. And Kelly says that the first thing that she would do was turn it down because it would just drive her crazy. And it's like, boo, Kelly. But Kelly is super cute. She says that it had been a real role reversal at some points. Mm-hmm. She says, quote, "It's just the music of my generation, and it's even a bit much for me at times." And I looked up the top songs of 1979, and I have to say it's like a lot of Hall & Oates. So it's like, Kelly, calm down.
But that'd be the equivalent of like us blasting anything that comes out right now, like Ariana Grande, which would not be, I don't listen to really, but it wouldn't be weird if we did.
Yeah. I dislike all music past 1997.
Grande, so
Yeah, it wouldn't be weird.
No, not at all. Exactly. And like Kelly's like, oh my God, this is Hall & Oates, Mom. Calm down. Like, you're rocking out too hard. It's
I bet so much of it was probably just like she was so fucking freaked out that her mom changed personalities.
God. Obviously, yes. I have all the empathy for Kelly now that I'm...
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. Her mom changed personalities.
Like, you would be so fucking freaked out. You've never been alive in a time when your mom was not alive, like, as a human. So
and coming home and your mom that really recently probably was listening to Burt Bacharach and like quietly vacuuming is now dressed like a teenage girl rocking out to Hall & Oates.
Mm-hmm. Like, it'd be fun if she'd always been like that, but she hadn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Kelly's like, ah. I do think it's interesting too that none of the other children are interviewed.
I thought so too.
So Stack says that for nearly 4 years, Sarah managed to keep up her charade.
No.
But finally, in November of 1979, Sarah discovered that she was not alone. An article in the local newspaper gave her the courage to reveal her secret to her family. Kelly says that eventually Sarah admitted that she didn't know who the family was, which is insane. It's been 4 years. Like, your mom's acting a little weird, but you're thinking, okay, I don't know. But 4 years later, your mother's finally like, I don't know you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's never come back to me.
Right. Yeah. I've been waiting, and I've looked at a million photographs, but I still have no idea what our family history is.
Yeah.
And Kelly is such as honey. She says sometimes she wishes that her mom could remember her when she was younger and when she was growing up, because she feels like she did get some characteristics from Sarah, like being athletic, and she thinks that her mom really would have enjoyed remembering that. William Benedict says that doctors always hope that they can learn from their experiences of their patients, and by that process continue to grow intellectually. But from time to time, an event will occur that remains inexplicable, a mystery. Stack says that today, with the help of her family, Sarah is trying to reconstruct the years that she thought she had lost forever. Sarah says that she will relearn what she lost. She says that people say, isn't that a shame for people who are handicapped? But she isn't going to let people say that to her. Stack says that despite the tremendous advances in the field of medicine, scientists still understand less than 5% of how our memory functions.
Yeah.
Sarah DiGenarro is still adjusting to the missing 16 years of her life, and though she still carries on bravely, her doctors do not foresee the day that Sarah will recover her lost memories. So, update is Sarah's trying. And I wasn't able to find a ton of information, but from what I can tell from my tiny understanding of amnesia, which is an even smaller understanding of the human brain, Sarah had a truly exceptional form of amnesia because it isn't fully retrograde amnesia, because that usually is the events leading up to the trauma. And it isn't anterograde amnesia because she was able to make new memories. So it could have been a form of dissociative amnesia.
Yeah.
Which is caused by stress or trauma.
Yeah.
And presents as forgetting specific events or periods of time.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Like, if this happened today, wouldn't they just call that a TBI?
Yes. But
did she have an injury, though?
Well, the blood vessel.
The brain.
All right.
So I always think of dissociative amnesia as physical or sexual trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
But in your brain, is there a difference between your brain knowing whether the trauma is happening inside your brain or not?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And in some cases, very rarely, dissociative amnesia could even mean forgetting most of your identity and life history.
Wow.
So, yeah, 2 broken blood vessels at the same time could be that. It's just we're so used to thinking of that type of amnesia with exterior trauma and not interior trauma. So in addition to that, a bit of information I found about the production of the segment from the Baltimore Sun. So in the surgery reenactment, they didn't just use actors. They used the actual surgical team from Johns Hopkins Hospital, which I think is incredible.
Yeah.
And then they reference a part of the segment that we didn't see. Sarah DiGenarro's character in the reenactment that was on the cutting room floor was baffled by the family's 1976 Pontiac Grand Prix, which to her seemed to have suddenly materialized from the future. As the camera rolled, she looked at the manual and walked around the car to get a sense of what she was seeing, which we did see her looking at the dishwasher instructions in the kitchen, but they recorded what it was like in a day in the life for her. So they recorded the actress doing a million day-to-day tasks, but it ended up on the cutting room floor. And then I was like, oh my God, how much footage did they record of all of these segments that we never got to see?
Yeah.
They must have cut so much.
Right.
Yeah, and we see that sometimes where we're like, that was a little abrupt, or that seemed weird that they didn't include this thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, who knows? They only had what? I mean, if each segment is, let's say, 15 minutes, the reenactment only takes up 5.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, so totally. Who the hell knows? I thought that was really, like, that was like a stunner moment for me. Mm-hmm. As for the DiGenarro children, as Stack mentioned, Sarah and her husband Paul had 4 children, but Kelly was the only one interviewed. Sadly, it seems like Paul died very young in 1980. Which is why he was not featured in the UM segment.
Oh, no.
And I think he was only in his mid-40s. I found Kelly on Facebook. I believe that she's a nurse, or she's definitely on the front ends of COVID in a hospital setting. And as for Sarah, sadly, she passed away in June of 2018. And from looking at photos, it seems like she was pretty sick for a long time. So, you know, normally I like scope people on Facebook and I post updated photos, but I don't want to do that for Sarah. Cuz she seemed quite sick and quite frail, and I can only imagine what that does to your body. Something like that happening to your brain.
So, but sorry, she never did get back that memory. It never came back.
No, I don't think so. And one of her daughters who I found posted something about when Sarah passed away, something about no longer having to deal with like the continuous mental health problems that Sarah had.
Oh.
Before I end, I want to shout out our listener, Maya S. A while back, so far ago, she emailed and she said that she would help me with this segment because I think she's literally a neuroscientist.
Oh, my goodness.
Due to the current insanity of my life right now, I waited until the last minute to email her, and I didn't hear back. Then I stalked her and found her on Facebook, and I was like, is it inappropriate if I friend her? I decided that it was. So I just want to apologize to Maya S. for being a last-minute Lucy, and if she does reply, we will post on our media feeds about what she has to say. Yeah, that's sorry. Nice. Yeah, and that's it.
Wow. Oh, that is terrible.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
We don't have to talk about this much longer, but one thing I was wondering is when she was trying to go back into her memory, why is it that it's like 16 years exactly?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
1960.
Well, maybe it wasn't exactly.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Were there some things that she'd remember and then they'd be like, oh, well, that was actually 1962. And then other things she couldn't remember and they'd be like, well, yeah, because that stopped in actually 1958 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how exact was it? And then with that, how like they said, they don't understand really we know more now, but we still don't know a lot about how the brain works. Like, how are memories stored? We are socialized to think about years.
Right.
But is the brain cataloging things in years? Not necessarily.
No.
So
I don't think the brain works on a 12-month calendar. No.
It's just so fucking interesting. It's so interesting that that's the injury that she got and it took away that amount of time. What was it about that made that happen? I don't know.
Or was that like was that small part of her brain responsible for the memories of those 16 years? And that's why, you know, like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and like, we don't know anything about the brain still.
Yeah, still.
Right.
We still don't know about the thing that makes us think.
I know.
And
that lets us do everything that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. That poor woman, that's so sad. Okay.
I just got really nervous.
I know. It's
okay,
scary.
So
we'll let Eliza do it.
Okay. Friends, we have things to share and feel this week, and they're not the same as how they normally are. And it's going to be a little bit sad. But we are announcing that after season 4, which will be the next 2 episodes, we are ending the show Resolved Mysteries.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
And
hearing you say that just made me want to cry.
I'm probably going to cry.
yeah, it's okay to
definitely
cry.
gonna cry.
This is what I tell. Well, I can't say what I do for my job, but it's okay to cry.
It does sound like we're laughing, which we are a little bit, but this is also real. We're not pranking you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, we're just laughing because we're upset, and that's what we do. That's how we handle stress in this family. We laugh.
Yeah, so this podcast has been so amazing and fun to do. Allison had like the best idea ever. And I know for myself, I feel so lucky that I've gotten to be part of this show. But just with the way our lives are right now with having kids and more than full-time jobs, literally all three of us work more than full-time. And then doing this podcast is
also pretty much a full-time job for some of us.
yes. And so we just kind of took a step back and we're like, what are our priorities? And we've loved doing it, but it's just not something that is sustainable for where we're at in our lives right now. So
we need to take care of our mental health, and we can't do that right now.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. And, we've all talked about how when this podcast started, Eliza and I had babies. And, we didn't really leave the house because leaving the house with a baby is super annoying. And then COVID hit and no one could leave the house. And now our children are older and they recognize when we're absent in a way that kind of feels bad,
For 9 hours every other Saturday.
For 9 hours every other.
I don't even have a child, but my husband also misses me.
Recognizes when you're gone. Yeah.
I just went on a date with Carlin's husband last night, and he was like, I have to say it will be super nice to see my wife again. So
this is where it's revealed we're in a 6-way marriage.
Well, I mean, for the record, Carlin's husband is my second favorite husband besides him. So. But yeah, and I really do think any podcast you listen to that isn't made by Wondery, the hosts talk about how much work it is, but it really is, it's more work than you could possibly imagine, to the point where when I was speaking with Eliza about this last week, I said, I kind of have been not honest about how much work this is because I was worried that you were going to tell me that we shouldn't do it anymore. So,
which I still knew and I still did.
No, I know, but I never I'm being completely honest now. It is.
Yes.
There are days where I'm at my computer because my job also is at my computer.
Yes.
I know. And I know the way you work, and you'll do little bits in between other things. So I think you don't even realize how much time it actually is.
Yeah.
Right. So I currently get up at 4:45 in the morning, and there have been some nights, especially this past month or so, where I have worked either at my real job, quote unquote, or this podcast until 11 p.m. In front of a computer. Without moving. And it's just...
That's not right. You're going to die someday, and you don't need to live your life that way.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And I think I think we all feel the same way, but I think Carlin and I, because the audience and the listeners a lot, the hardest thing is, that's the hardest thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Definitely, so much of this has been so much fun, and I love doing this with my best friends, but also, you guys have been the best part of it because...
Carlin's going to cry. Because we made a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
And Carlin
especially,
has talked to so many of you.
Yeah, Carlin
Yes,
on
and,
Instagram
especially during COVID when, we were all really isolated.
Yeah.
It was just nice to have that community, so...
That's so nice.
I appreciate you guys, and we love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if there was any way, and believe me, I tried to work out a million ways where this could continue on.
Same. Yeah.
And there's just not a way for it to happen.
It's not reasonable. Yeah. Any podcast is work, but this podcast is times 4 always.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts and they're it's a 20-minute episode. And I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? You're not a podcast. If your podcast isn't an hour and 45 minutes long, are you even podcasting?
We've had to research multiple segments. There's no way we could do it with any less than 3 people because everyone always has 2 segments per episode, at least. 1 person.
And now, it's just reached a point where we just can't do it anymore. And it really does it breaks my heart because this was my idea and I absolutely got Eliza to do it after I gave her wine. And then I took Carlin to lunch for sushi.
You gave me sake.
Yeah, I gave her sake. I basically got my 2 best friends drunk and I was like, how hard could it be?
And we truly did not know.
It still
we
was
had
the
no
hardest
idea.
on you. Yeah. It was,
yeah. And 4 years later, it's now too hard. So, yeah, it's a bummer and it's a heartbreaker, but it's just really what we need to do, or we won't survive. Like, we won't survive in a
and we were
way.
talking about it too, and we were like, imagine just getting to hang out and be friends.
Right.
Like, so much of the time we spend together is like, while it's fun, and it's fun when we sit down and record, it's also business. So it's
a job. Yeah.
It'll be
It's a
nice
job.
to just get to hang out and be friendies.
We lose content. Like I just lost half of the content. Like it's so stressful.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. So yeah, I feel terrible. I feel like we're disappointing like the 10,000 people that listen to us every week. And I feel terrible for our patrons and the people like Matt and Thomas and, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have been like not just a community, but you've just been so supportive and
Chelsea.
so nice.
And Megan, Footy Megan, like all these people that have been with us. Some of us
people we've gotten wedding invitations from.
Chelsea, shout out.
Yeah. But it's like as much as I want to keep doing it for everybody else, I have to stop doing it or I'm going to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. I do recommend like for listeners, if this news makes you really sad, like we understand that and so appreciate those feelings, and then would just ask, I guess, like this might be a good time for other people in their lives, like after COVID, putting things into perspective kind of too. Like if there is anything in your life that you feel like is too much, like it's okay to put up boundaries and say no, or be a little bit what is going to feel selfish, but is actually just like caring for yourself, which is a very important thing to do that we do not do, especially in American culture.
Right.
Like it's not, we have a value system that's like, go. If you're busy all the time, then you're doing a good job. And it actually doesn't have to be that way. And so, like we feel really sad and we feel bad, but also it's what we have to do for ourselves. So it's obviously like mixed emotions, but if you have anything in your life that's like that, like please consider that, because we only get one of these lives unless we get reincarnated, but most people don't remember, so it doesn't even matter anyway. Should we say what we're covering next episode?
Yeah, for the last episode ever of Resolved Mysteries.
4 seasons. Okay, you go first.
Oh,
Alison.
I do go first. Oh, gosh. I have an investigator segment loosely about a man named Doug Johnson, but we'll come to find out it's actually about 3 other people.
Of course it is.
Because I'm going to go out at the top.
Yep.
And then we've got another robbery. That's a thing now. And guess what? It's also an armored car heist. It's the Rochester car heist.
And I have in part 2 a Lost Love segment about Robert or Bobby Brown.
And then, would I be Alison of Resolved Mysteries podcast if I didn't end the show with the murder of a child in his bed in his school, the unexplained death of Chaim Weiss.
Oh, heartbreaker. I was not expecting it.
No, it's terrible.
Very much.
Okay, honeys, we love you.
We really
It's going to be
do.
okay. Everyone's going to be okay.
Gonna be okay. We have one more episode.
We can do this. Okay, love you. Goodbye.
Love you so much.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
To see photos we reference in the episode, follow us on Instagram at Resolved Mysteries Podcast and on Facebook and Twitter at Resolve the Pod. You can contact us at resolvedmysteriespodcast.com, resolvedmysteriespodcast@gmail.com, or at our P.O. Box, 14005, Portland, Oregon, 97293. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, leave a 5-star review and tell a friend, or tell 2, or tell 3. Don't forget, for every review we receive, we donate $1 to a different nonprofit. From Duncock, Maryland. She has been stricken with amnesia. Is it Duncock?
Is it?
Oh, no.
Because it seems
I told you I didn't spell check. Duncock? Maryland? This isn't good.
Just look on the fandom wiki. It'll tell you.
Duncock? Oh, right. Okay.
She just kept saying Duncock.
I can't stop saying it.
Saying Duncock.
You stop saying Duncock.
Duncock? Question mark?
It just says Dundalk.
Great.
All right.
Okay. I'm glad we fixed that.